Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja Divedi, and in this segment today we are going to discuss all about cooperative banking. This topic is important from the perspective of prelims and also from the perspective of GS mains papers. These are the topics that we are going to cover step by step, starting with the news. So, a committee was appointed by the RBI in the month of February under the chairmanship of the Deputy Governor of RBI, N.S. Vishwanathan, and they have come up with certain suggestions for improving the cooperative banking structure, and they have divided the cooperative banks, urban cooperative or primary cooperative banks, into different tiers, basing this judgment to divide the banks on tiers on the following proper norms. First is deposits, how much deposits they carry. Second is regulatory norms. The bigger the bank, the more regulation should be there. And third, the capital adequacy. So, on these important premises, the cooperative banks have been divided. Moving on, before we actually cover the news step by step, certain very important key terms are there. First is capital adequacy framework. That means a framework which suggests that a financial institution should have a proper safeguard when it comes to having a capital in order to absorb any risks or ups and downs that arise from the instability in the finances in the market. And capital to risk weighted asset ratio. This means that tier 1 capital plus tier 2 capital. It should be divided by weighted risk. In simple terms, proper amount of capital should be available in the form of tier 1 and tier 2, which should be divided by how many loans can turn into non-performing assets. I as a bank should have proper capital to help those customers who have deposited with me in case any loan which I have advanced to any person becomes a non-performing asset, and it should not cause any ruckus in the society. Also, there were two broad sources of constraints. Why do we even need to have attention over the cooperative banks, urban cooperative banks? The first reason is that they are mammoth in nature. There are approximately 8.6 lakh account holders which contribute to the 500 lakh crore of amount in our financial structure. Also, there have been certain instances, 1000 instances of fraud in the past 5 to 6 fiscal years. And that has caused a loss of rupees 220 crore. So you can see the huge size and the financial inclusivity of this particular structure, the cooperative banking structure. It is important to regularize them. And the first step was taken when recently in the year 2020, the Banking Regulation Amendment Act was there in order to regularize the cooperative banks. We will talk about them also. First, we need to understand there were two main constraints, internal and external. When internal constraints are talked about, then there are certain problems inside the cooperative banks with respect to proper human resources, proper capital adequacy, or they may not have proper technology to deal with the problems. And the second one, that is external, that is supposed to be problems arising from the instability in the market. So these two constraints are actually causing problems in the cooperative banks. So as I told you that 4 tiers have been suggested by this panel, and it suggests that tier 1 should have a deposit of up to rupees 100 crore, then tier 2 between 100 to 1000 crore, tier 3 between 1000 to 10,000, and over rupees 10,000 crore it is tier 4. So this division in different tiers is because of the deposits, and we need to understand that minimum capital to risk-weighted asset ratio for them could vary from 9% to 15%. But in case of tier 4, urban cooperative banks, it should be based on Basel III norms. What are Basel III norms? Basel III norms are the norms which are internationally agreed. And it is with the help of, this was actually finalized, Basel III norms, by the help of Basel Committee for Bank Supervision. And this was in reaction to the financial crisis of 2007 and 9. There are 3 pillars where it should work, where the Basel III norms are based on 3 pillars. First pillar suggests that proper capital should be there to absorb the ups and downs in the financial market. Second, risk management should be good and proper governance should be there. And third is that transparency should be there. What have you lent to the public? Any bank, where have you lent? Have you lent it to some risky customer? And disclosure should be there. So these three are the proper norms. And as you can see here, tier 4 is over rupees 10,000 crore of deposit. That means more and more interest, public interest is there. So that is why Basel 3 norms will appear here. Moving on, separate ceilings have been given in case of advancing loans, gold loans, unsecured loans for different years. And RBI should be largely neutral to voluntary consolidation, because here under this also, according to the Banking Regulation Amendment Act of 2020 as well, RBI is free for mergers and amalgamation of UCBs, Urban Cooperative Banks. But it should be largely neutral, except where it is suggested as a supervisory action. And this could come when no voluntary approach is being done from the urban cooperative banks and not a planned result is being taken place. Under the Banking Regulation Act, the RBI can prepare the scheme of compulsory amalgamation or reconstruction of UCBs, loss making. And supervisory action framework should also follow a twin indicator approach. That means it should consider only asset quality. What is the asset quality should be considered? And capital measured through CRAR and NNP instead of 3 indicators as at present. RBI should declare certain securities issued by UCBs as covered under the Securities Contract Regulation Act. Securities Contract Regulation Act actually takes into account the securities which are listed by different banks and companies and on the stock exchange. And legislative enablement for listing certain securities should also be taking place. In order any default or any issues happen with the securities, proper redressal could take place. And the maximum limit on housing loans may be prescribed as a percentage of tier 1 capital. Recommendations regarding loan against gold ornament with bullet repayment option. Bullet repayment option is actually the repayment in full at the time of maturity. Keep that in mind. And umbrella organization can also be formed that is financially sound and that has the capital of 300 crore rupees, and this umbrella organization should have a good governance and regulatory procedure, and this also can become self-regulatory organization for small UCBs in the future. Moving on, if we talk about cooperative banks, what are these? These are financial institutions that are very helpful in nature for when it comes to financing the unincluded. That is, the members and owners and customers of the bank are the same people. Keep that in mind. And urban and rural, there are two types of cooperative banks. Cooperative Societies Act of the state concerned, wherever the cooperative banks are working, it is actually empowered with regulating the cooperative banks, or under the Multi-State Cooperative Society Act, if one cooperative bank is working in different states. Okay. And the cooperative banks are also governed by the Banking Regulation Act of 1949 and Banking Laws, Cooperative Societies Act of 1955. So we need to understand that RBI partly regulates the cooperative banks and the Registrar General of Cooperative Banks are partly regulating the cooperative banks. So it's in parts. Also, if we talk about the cooperative banks, first, there are many advantages. First, that is customer-owned entities. As I told you that the customer is the same person as the owner and the shareholder. And also because of that, democratic members election could take place. If I am a member, I am the customer of a bank, I would obviously want to elect somebody that will be in the benefit, that will take care of the benefit of majority and my opinion as well, my interest as well. So democratically elected. Profit allocation is such that it is actually based on one person, one vote, the democratic setup of this particular bank, cooperative bank. So when it comes to profit allocation, it is also very socialistic in nature. And financial inclusion, as I told you that it actually helps those people who are not in the net of the regular or stream one of the entire financial procedure, like the banks. Okay, let's move forward and talk about the impacts. What is actually planned with this suggestion? That proper regulation would take place, because as I told you that many fraud cases have taken place in the past, and the problems with the Punjab and Maharashtra cooperative societies, cooperative banks were not societies, banks were also there. So those crises, keeping those crises in mind, keeping the interest of the large section in mind, we need to understand we need better regulation and stability. Whenever there is a problem with the entire structure of the market, cooperative banks may not be able to have that much of capital to absorb the risks. So second impact is that expected. Advantages: first, transparency will be there. If we talk about the tier 4 cooperative banks, they are supposed to comply by the rules of Basel III norms. So when we talk about Basel III norms, the third pillar of it is having transparency when it comes to lending the loans, and of course having proper rules when it comes to how to govern those loans, when to disclose the risks that are available. Accountability and transparency will be there. Better management will be there when it comes to the Basel III norms again, where the second pillar was proper management, risk management should take place. Then technological advancements. As more and more regulation will take place and the central bank will be in charge, it would want the management of that entire organization to take place in a well-managed, well-behaved way. Also, there would be liquidity. When we talk about the liquidity structure of cooperative banks, it's not doing very great. So when there will be a division of the cooperative banks, what will happen? Proper capital provisions will also be made for different tiers according to the deposit. So liquidity will be there. Depositors will not be at a higher risk than they are right now. And availability of talent pool. Of course, if the management will try to govern the risks in a better manner, more talent will also grow from amongst them only. Moving on, if we talk about the disadvantages, first, too many regulations may actually choke the free-flowing work of the cooperative banks. Too many regulations will take place. Red tapeism because of that, because I as a cooperative bank will have to now ask for permission to provide loans to my depositors or my customers or my owners. Then what will happen? There will be red tapeism because it will go through too many regulation and too many bosses. Also, lack of democracy. This might get affected, as I told you that one man, one vote structure goes when it comes to elections in the cooperative bankings. Now, democracy may get hurdled because of that, because of course now RBI will also be more stringent with it. Let's move forward and talk about our conclusion. We need balanced regulatory supervision, not too much, not too less. And democratic setup should also be, of course, not compromised with, because the main principle of cooperative banking is financial inclusion, and democracy should be there. The voices of each and every member should be respected. Moving on, when we talk about our mains-based question, kindly pay attention to this question: what is cooperative banking? Critically analyze the issues with its functioning and also give a way forward for its betterment. So, that's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.